Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to tackle something pretty interesting, something called the Scarcity Brain. You'll get a great book on the topic by Michael Easter.
Fantastic book.
We've got interviews with experts,
Uh-huh.
even some crazy stories about monks and slot machines.
Oh, wow.
So get ready. It's going to be a wild ride.
It is fascinating how our brains are still wired, for like survival mode when resources were scarce.
Yeah.
But we live in a world of abundance now.
Right, like overflowing with choice.
Overflowing. So we're going to unpack how that ancient wiring, the scarcity loop, how it affects us today.
Okay, so the scarcity loop, let me see if I got this right.
Sure.
It basically means that if our brain thinks something's scarce, it pushes us to get it.
Yeah.
Even if it's not really that important.
Exactly. Think about it. Our ancestors, they were dealing with limited food, shelter,
Right.
social standing.
Mm-hmm.
Their brains developed this system, this loop, to zero in on those scarce resources.
Makes sense.
Ensure their survival.
Yeah. Easter uses this great example to explain this. Slot machines in Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
All those flashing lights, the sounds, the chance of winning big. It's like the perfect setup
It is.
to activate that scarcity loop. You've got the opportunity. You've got the unpredictable rewards.
Right.
And you can just keep playing again and again and again.
Right. And then there's that story he tells about that guy at the 7-Eleven playing the slots.
Oh, yeah.
Having pizza delivered to the machine. It's like,
They don't even get stopped.
doesn't want to break the loop, doesn't want to miss a chance. It just shows how powerful this loop can be.
Yeah.
Really captivating.
It makes you think about all those notifications we get on our phones, right?
Absolutely.
All those alerts. Are we just feeding our own scarcity loop without even realizing it?
It's a good question. And there's actually research to back this up.
Really?
Yeah, psychologist Thomas Zental,
Okay.
he found that even pigeons prefer unpredictable rewards. Pigeons. They would choose these unpredictable rewards even when they end up getting less food overall.
Wow. So even pigeons have a little bit of a gambling problem.
They do. It's fascinating.
That's pretty wild. But what's actually happening in the brain when this is going on?
Well, it all boils down to dopamine
Okay.
and reward seeking. You see, dopamine's not about pleasure itself.
Okay.
It's about the drive to seek it out.
Ah, I see.
And this drive, it was super crucial for survival in the past.
Right.
If our ancestors weren't persistent, constantly seeking food and shelter,
It wouldn't last long.
they wouldn't have made it.
Makes sense.
But now, with so much abundance all around us, it's like that same drive that kept us alive back then might not be so helpful today.
Like, it's almost like our brains are kind of stuck in that survival mode.
Yeah, and it can lead to some really interesting behaviors.
Interesting how... Give me an example.
Okay. Think about how technology is designed these days. A
Mm.
lot of apps and websites, they intentionally use this scarcity loop.
Well,
Think about fitness trackers. All those points and badges and rewards,
oh yeah.
unpredictable rewards, they're all designed to keep us coming back, keep us hitting those goals.
They keep us hooked.
Hooked, exactly.
Or dating apps, like Tinder.
Oh, yeah.
You're constantly swiping, hoping for a match. It's like a slot machine, basically.
It is. It's the same principle. And then there's the news.
Ah, yes.
Especially the political news. It's like a 247 cycle of unpredictable events and heated arguments.
Yeah. Keeps you glued to the screen.
Designed to keep us hooked, craving the next bit of information.
So we're basically surrounded by things that are designed to kind of poke at our scarcity brain.
It seems that way. And Michael Easter, he brings up another fascinating point in his book,
What's that?
the adding phenomenon.
The adding phenomenon.
Humans, we have this natural tendency to add, to accumulate, to do more.
More.
Even when simplifying might actually be the better option. He tells this funny story about a 3-year-old named Ezra
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
who outsmarted these engineers who were building a Lego bridge.
They kept trying to add more Lego.
Well, Legos, yeah. And he just removed a few to fix the problem.
You're like, nope, take these away.
Simple solution.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect illustration of how our brains tend to default to adding. Easter's own research with those Lego bridge experiments
All right.
found that adults, we tend to add even when subtracting would be more efficient.
It's like we're hardwired to think more is better,
Right.
even when it leads to feeling totally overwhelmed.
Exactly. And again, it goes back to that evolutionary mismatch.
Okay.
In a world with limited resources,
Mm-hmm.
adding more meant better chances of survival.
Right.
But now, That instinct can backfire, leaving us feeling stressed and overloaded.
Too much stuff.
Too much.
So how does this scarcity brain play out in a more extreme sense?
To understand that, Easter takes us to Iraq. Yeah, he goes to Iraq to investigate the Captagon epidemic.
Whoa, that's pretty intense.
It is. It's a really gripping story.
Yeah.
Taxi rides, militias. He even meets with the head of Baghdad's drug enforcement agency.
He actually went there to study this.
He did. And what he found was really eye-opening. The influx of cheap Captagon combined with high unemployment, trauma from years of war,
Yeah.
and limited positive stimulation. It's like this perfect storm
Yeah.
for addiction to take hold.
Like people are stuck in this cycle of scarcity.
Right.
And Captagon, it offers this temporary escape.
Yeah.
A way to numb the pain.
It's a really insightful way to put it. And Easter, he brings in this thought-provoking perspective on addiction from a psychiatrist in Baghdad, Dr. Abdul Razak.
Okay.
Dr. Abdul Razak, he emphasizes that addiction isn't just about brain chemistry or moral failings.
Mm-hmm.
He says it's often shaped by learned behaviors and environmental circumstances.
That's a much more kind of, I guess, compassionate way of thinking about addiction.
It is.
It's not just about willpower.
It's not.
It's about the context, the environment.
Absolutely. And to further understand how our aversion to uncertainty drives our behavior,
Okay.
Easter brings in the work of journalist Viet Thanh Nguyen.
Okay, so tell me about this guy. What makes him so special?
Well, for starters, he knows his pastries.
Mm-hmm.
Easter describes him ordering like half the pastry case at Tartine Bakery.
Uh-huh. I like him already.
Right.
A man of good taste.
But beyond the pastries, Nguyen is a deep thinker. He argues that our desire for certainty, for knowing what's coming next, is a powerful force
Okay.
in our decision-making. He cites this study where participants actually preferred receiving a painful electric shock
What?
over facing uncertainty about whether or not the shock was coming.
So people would rather get zapped
They would,
than deal with the unknown?
than not knowing.
Wow. That's crazy. It really shows how much we hate uncertainty.
It does. And evolutionarily speaking, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Our ancestors, in a world full of danger, they had to avoid unnecessary risks.
Right.
So being able to predict and control their surroundings was crucial.
So this aversion to uncertainty, it was helpful back then,
Very helpful.
but it might not be serving us so well now.
You got it.
So this aversion to uncertainty, it's like really ingrained in us.
Yeah.
Are we like doomed to be stuck in this loop?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I mean, awareness is the first step.
Okay.
We got to understand how it operates, especially in our digital world.
Right.
Remember we talked about gamification earlier?
Yeah, how companies use all those points and badges and
Yeah.
leaderboards trying to make everything feel like a game.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's supposed to be motivating.
Yeah.
But there's a flip side to this.
Uh-huh.
Gamification, it often simplifies things too much, complex goals.
Right.
And it focuses on these arbitrary metrics,
Okay.
which can actually distract us
From what?
from the real reasons we do things.
Okay.
Easter, he brings up this great example of Robert Parker,
Robert Parker, the wine guy.
the wine guy, and his 100-point scoring system.
Oh, yeah.
It like totally transformed the wine industry.
I mean, everyone knows those Parker scores.
They do. Winemakers, they started focusing on just pleasing Parker,
Mm-hmm.
get those high scores, even if it meant sacrificing the quality and the unique character of the wine.
Just chasing the points.
Exactly. And it's this perfect example of how a simple number intended to be like objective can distort our perception.
Yeah.
And then, it affects a whole industry.
That's crazy.
It's powerful stuff.
And I mean, it's not just wine, right?
Oh,
And Nguyen, our pastry-loving expert on certainty,
right.
he talked about his own experience with Twitter
Ah!
and how the platform's scoring system,
Mhm.
with all the likes and retweets and followers, actually changed the way he wrote, He was crafting these short, provocative tweets just to get more engagement.
It's like we're all playing the algorithm.
Yeah.
It's a game.
And it's a powerful reminder, I think, that even systems designed with good intentions can be manipulated.
For sure.
And when we get so focused on winning the game,
Yeah.
as you said, we can lose sight of what's really important.
Exactly.
So this drive to quantify and measure everything, to chase those numbers, it can really lead us down a weird path.
It can. It can. Easter talks about the work of C. Green,
Okay.
who critiques our reliance on grades in education.
Grades, yeah.
Focusing too much on grades, he argues, can actually hinder learning.
Really?
Instead of cultivating knowledge and critical thinking and love of learning, we become obsessed with achieving a certain number.
That makes sense.
Right.
Even in my own experience as a professor, I've noticed that sometimes my most promising students aren't the ones with, perfect grades.
Oh, interesting.
They're the ones who challenge assumptions and take risks.
Yeah.
They go beyond the textbook.
They're the ones who are really learning.
Exactly.
And the students who are like fixated on getting A's, they often miss out.
Yeah.
They're so busy playing the grades game that they forget to actually learn.
They're missing the point.
Exactly. And this whole thing of quantifying everything, it goes way beyond the classroom,
Oh, for sure.
We see it in healthcare, in politics, even in our own personal lives.
Yeah. Numbers are everywhere.
They are. It's constant numbers, statistics, metrics, rankings.
Yeah.
And it can be overwhelming.
Totally.
It can distort our understanding
Of what?
of really complex issues.
Right. We lose sight of the nuances.
The nuance in that.
The human stories.
The human story.
The things you can't just capture in a number.
It's like we're addicted to oversimplification.
Yeah, I feel that. So, okay, this drive to quantify everything, this scarcity brain, it also plays into our drive for status, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Status and influence.
Yeah, that age-old desire to climb the social ladder.
It's like it's hardwired into us.
And it makes sense, evolutionarily speaking.
It does.
Back in the day, status meant access to, better resources, better mates, better chances of survival.
It did. Being popular was a survival strategy.
So being popular was like a life or death thing.
In a way, yes.
Wow.
Easter gives this example of the potlatch ceremony.
Potlatch.
Yeah, it was practiced by some Native American tribes. And basically the leader would host this huge feast and shower his guests with gifts,
Right.
displaying all his wealth and influence.
Sounds kind of like those social media influencers today.
Doesn't it?
Throwing those lavish parties, documenting everything for their followers.
It's the same principle at work. The methods have evolved, but the underlying motivation, it's still there.
Yeah, we're still driven by that need for status.
We are.
And social media, it's definitely made this whole status game a lot more intense.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like a constant competition.
It is.
To show off, our achievements, our possessions, our perfect lives.
Yeah, and it's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
Easter even admits to falling into this trap.
Really?
Yeah, he was posting stuff on Instagram just to get those likes and comments.
Even if he wasn't really into it.
Even if it didn't really reflect his true self.
It's so easy to do.
It is. We're constantly bombarded with these images of these like perfect lives.
Yeah.
And it's easy to start comparing.
Yeah.
Feeling inadequate.
Like we're not good enough.
It's a trap, and we forget that social media is just a highlight reel.
Yeah.
We're only seeing the best parts.
The curated version.
The curated version. It's not the whole picture.
Right. And this drive for more, it doesn't stop at social media.
No, it doesn't.
It extends to our relationship with stuff, with possessions.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? We live in this world of unprecedented abundance, but we still want more.
We always want more.
More stuff. More.
It's like our brains haven't quite caught up to this abundance.
No, they haven't.
We're still operating with this scarcity mindset.
Like we're still in survival mode.
Even though it might not be relevant anymore.
Exactly. And Easter, he shares some pretty funny stories about his own struggles with this.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the one about the Subaru Outback?
Oh, yeah.
His wife was not impressed.
Not at all. It's so relatable, though, right?
Oh, it is.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
You buy something you don't really need.
Yeah.
Just because it was on sale or, you got caught up in the moment.
It happens.
It happens to the best of us. But it makes you wonder, how did we get to this point?
Right.
Where we're just, surrounded by so much stuff.
This whole shift from scarcity to abundance, it's relatively recent,
Yeah. Okay. So when did things change?
Well, Easter, he traces it back to the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
And we figured out how to mass produce stuff. Right.
Make it more affordable.
And suddenly everyone could buy everything.
Exactly. Led to an explosion of consumerism.
Yeah.
We went from having very little to having way too much in a very short amount of time.
And our brains just haven't caught up.
They haven't.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do we find contentment?
Yeah, that's the big question. How do we break free from this constant desire for more?
It's a good question. And to explore this, Easter takes us on this amazing journey.
Where to?
To the Bolivian Amazon.
The Amazon.
Yeah, to study the Seminane tribe.
Okay, the rainforest. It sounds like an adventure.
It was. He describes bumpy plane rides, treacherous boat trips,
Oh, wow.
all kinds of crazy wildlife encounters.
That's amazing. But what's so special about this Simone tribe?
The Seminane, they're known for their incredibly healthy hearts.
Healthy hearts?
They have almost no heart disease.
Wow.
And their lifestyle is a stark contrast to ours.
How so?
They live in these small, isolated communities.
Mm-hmm.
Their diet's mainly plant-based, very little processed food.
Okay.
And they're physically active just as part of their daily life, you know? It's
Yeah.
it's part of their routine.
Sounds pretty idyllic,
It does.
but hard to replicate.
It would be hard to replicate, you're right.
It's in our modern world.
It would be. But there are still valuable lessons we can learn from them.
Like what?
One key takeaway is their diet.
Okay.
It's incredibly low in what researchers call ultra-processed foods.
Ultra-processed foods. Okay, so what does that mean?
It's basically the kind of stuff that's loaded with sugar and salt and fat and artificial ingredients.
Oh, okay.
You know, the stuff that tempts us in those center aisles of the grocery store.
Yeah, all the packaged stuff.
And packaged stuff. Easter highlights this this research by Kevin Hall.
Yeah.
He did these experiments comparing the effects of an ultra-processed diet versus a Semin-like diet.
Oh, wow, okay. What happened?
The results were pretty striking. The people on the ultra-processed diet, they ate significantly more calories.
Of course they did.
And they gained weight.
Yeah.
Whereas those on the Seminane-like diet, they actually ate less
Interesting.
and lost weight.
So it wasn't about, restricting themselves.
Oh.
They were just eating more natural food,
They felt more satisfied.
more full.
So maybe the key to contentment isn't about constantly seeking more.
Right.
It's about simplifying,
Simplify.
focusing on quality over quantity,
Quality over quantity.
and rediscovering the things that really nourish us.
It's a powerful insight.
Yeah.
And this idea goes beyond just food,
Yeah.
Easter explores this further with Laura Zara.
Laura Zara.
Yeah, she's a survival expert.
Okay.
And she embodies this gear, not stuff philosophy.
Gear, not stuff. I like that. Tell me more about this Laura Zara.
Well, Easter went shed hunting with her in Montana.
Shed hunting.
Yeah.
And he describes her as incredibly skilled, resourceful,
Mm-hmm.
covered in tattoos,
Oh,
and just deeply connected to nature.
sounds awesome.
She's the ultimate minimalist.
So what exactly is this gear, not stuff philosophy all about?
It's about being intentional, with our possessions. It's about acquiring things that serve a specific purpose.
Okay.
Things that actually enhance our lives,
Yeah.
rather than just accumulating stuff for the sake of having more.
For the sake of it, yeah.
Exactly. And Zira's approach to possessions it's really inspiring.
Yeah.
It reminds us that we don't need a lot of stuff
Yeah.
to live a fulfilling life.
Right. In fact, having less can actually free us up
It can.
to pursue our passions,
Absolutely.
connect with nature, appreciate the simple things.
It resonates with a lot of people these days.
Yeah.
There's this growing movement towards minimalism,
Yeah, simplifying,
Simplifying, getting back to basics.
focusing on what matters.
Exactly. And speaking of getting back to basics, we can't ignore another major challenge of modern life.
What's that?
Information overload.
Ugh, yes.
We're constantly bombarded with data and news and opinions and distractions.
It's overwhelming.
It's how do we even know what to believe anymore?
It's impossible.
Where do we even focus our attention?
Right, it's like this information abyss.
It is.
I feel like I spend hours online, just scrolling and clicking, and I'm not sure I'm actually learning anything. Yeah.
It's a common feeling.
It is.
And to approach this topic, Easter talks with someone who has a unique perspective.
Oh, who's that?
Astronaut Mark Van de Hei.
An astronaut. Wow. Okay, what does he have to say about information overload?
Well, Van de Hey, he spent over 500 days in space.
500 days.
500 days. He's seen the vastness of Earth from a perspective that few of us can even imagine.
That's incredible.
It is. And what's interesting is, after experiencing that, he came back with this even greater appreciation for our planet.
Really?
Yeah. And a desire to explore more of it.
That's really cool. It's like, even after seeing the ultimate big picture,
Yeah.
he still finds wonder and excitement in the details.
Exactly. And Easter, he uses Van de Hey's experience to illustrate this point.
Which is?
We humans are wired to be informivores.
Informivores.
Yeah, creatures who are constantly seeking out and consuming information.
We're hungry for information.
We are. But in a world of like infinite information, that instinct can become a problem.
Okay, it's like a paradox.
It is. We crave information, but too much of it can lead to overwhelming anxiety, this feeling of always being behind.
Yeah, like you can never catch up.
You can't.
There's always more.
There's always more. Easter, he shares this funny anecdote about his time as an intern at Esquire magazine.
Oh, okay. What happened?
He was tasked with figuring out how much money the Pope makes. The Pope.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, sounds simple enough.
Right. But that's the point of the story.
Okay.
He and the other interns, they spent hours researching, interviewing experts, scouring the internet.
Right.
They discovered that the Pope doesn't actually draw a salary.
Wow.
Ah.
So all that effort for nothing.
For nothing. But it's a good reminder that sometimes the information we seek, it's just not readily available.
Right.
Or it might not even exist.
Oh, it might not even exist.
The internet, it's incredibly useful, of course.
Yeah.
But it can also be a source of misinformation and distraction.
So we need to be more discerning, right?
We do.
About where we get our information from.
We can't just believe everything we read, and it ties back to this aha feeling, you know?
The aha feeling.
That sense of clarity we get when we think we found the answer.
Yeah, I love that feeling.
We all do. But Easter argues that this feeling can be deceptive.
In what way?
Because we're so conditioned to instant gratification, we might settle for these superficial explanations.
Without digging deeper.
Without digging deeper, we crave that certainty, that feeling of having the answer.
Right.
And it can lead us to stop exploring too soon.
So, okay, how do we navigate this information abyss wisely then?
Right.
How do we become more discerning about what we consume?
That's what we'll explore next.
So much information, so little time. It's tough, right? How do we make sense of it all?
Well, one strategy is to be aware of how this scarcity loop shows up in unexpected places,
Right.
like online reviews.
Reviews, yeah.
Easter pointed out that reviews, they often focus on the extremes.
The extreme.
The best and the worst.
Oh.
Those average, everyday experiences.
Yeah.
Not so much.
Oh, that's so true. We tend to gravitate toward the really dramatic ones, right?
We do.
The ones that evoke strong emotions.
Yeah.
But that can give us a kind of skewed perspective, right?
It can. It's like looking at the world through a filter.
A filter, yeah.
That only shows the highs and the lows.
Right. We miss all the stuff in between.
We miss the nuances.
The nuance, yeah.
The richness of those in-between experiences.
I bet it also kind of takes away some of the joy of discovery, you know?
It does.
If you research everything beforehand, you're basically spoiling the surprise.
Exactly. Like reading a novel after you already know the ending.
Yeah. You might understand the plot, but you've lost that element of surprise.
You've missed the journey.
Yeah, the journey.
The unfolding.
Exactly. So maybe it's about finding a balance.
Balance, yeah.
Using those reviews as a starting point, but also, leaving room for exploration.
Exploration.
For those unexpected discoveries.
And John Hank, the creator of Pokemon Go, he offers a really interesting perspective on this.
Pokemon Go.
He's trying to design technology that actually encourages exploration.
Okay.
Real-world interaction.
I mean, that game was such a phenomenon when it first came out.
It was.
I remember seeing people, all ages, walking around, phones out, completely engrossed.
It got people out of their houses.
It did.
Engaging with their surroundings and each other. It's like a digital scavenger hunt, but with real-world benefits.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that we have a choice in how we use technology. We don't have to let it control us.
Right. We can use it as a tool.
As a tool.
To enhance our lives.
Enhance our lives.
To connect with the world around us.
Exactly. And speaking of connection, we can't talk about the scarcity brain without addressing, the big question.
Which is?
Happiness.
Happiness, yeah. Can we truly be happy?
In a world.
Yeah, in a world that's constantly telling us we need more.
That's the ultimate question, isn't it?
It is. Where do we find that contentment?
Amidst all this pressure to acquire and achieve and accumulate.
So much pressure. To explore this, Easter takes us to a place that embodies a completely different approach to life.
Oh, where's that?
Our Lady of Guadalupe Monastery.
The monks.
The monks. I'm intrigued.
Easter, he spends several days immersed in their way of life, observing their daily routines, the rituals, their dedication to work and prayer.
I can imagine it must have been incredibly peaceful.
It was. And what's so striking is the contrast, between their lifestyle and the one we're so used to.
Yeah.
The monks, they live with very few possessions. Their days are structured by routine and service to something greater than themselves.
A different way of thinking.
It is. And Easter, he shares the story about Father Matthew.
Father Matthew.
Yeah, the monastery's head priest.
Okay.
He had been on a completely different path. He was chasing wealth and status in the Texas oil industry.
Wow, okay. And then what happened?
One day, he sees this Rolls Royce.
A Rolls Royce.
Driving through the oil fields, and it just hits him.
What hit him?
This pursuit of material wealth, it just wasn't fulfilling.
Yeah.
It felt empty.
Empty, yeah.
And so he leaves it all behind.
He just walks away.
He walks away to become a monk.
That's a pretty radical shift.
It is. But it highlights this powerful truth.
What's that?
True happiness, it doesn't come from acquiring more things,
Right.
Or chasing external validation. It's about finding meaning and purpose.
Beyond ourselves.
Beyond ourselves.
Makes you wonder, what would it look like to apply that philosophy to our own lives,
That's the question.
I mean, the monks, they find joy in simplicity.
They do.
In their work, their community, their connection to something larger than themselves.
And it challenges this common assumption, right? That happiness comes primarily from social connection.
Okay, yeah.
The monks, they live a very solitary life,
right,
with limited social interaction.
And yet they seem content?
They do. It's a paradox.
It is.
But it also highlights the importance of solitude.
Solitude.
Having time for introspection, reflection, self-discovery.
Right. That time alone with ourselves is so important.
It is. And Easter even touches on his own struggles with addiction.
Oh, wow.
And how finding that balance,
between what?
Between solitude and connection, it's been crucial for his recovery.
So we need both.
We need both.
Time alone to connect with ourselves.
Yes.
Time with others to feel that sense of belonging.
It's all about finding that balance.
And maybe that's the key to navigating the scarcity brain, right?
Maybe it is.
Finding that balance between the drive for more,
yeah,
and the contentment that comes from appreciating what we already have.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it echoes the advice that Father Matthew gave Easter at the end of his visit, Seek meaning and purpose beyond the material world.
Okay.
Connect with something larger than yourself. And embrace the complexities of human life.
That's such a powerful message. It feels like a fitting conclusion to our deep dive into the scarcity brain.
It has been quite a journey.
It has, from slot machines in Vegas to pigeons pecking for food to the depths of the Amazon rainforest and the quiet solitude of a monastery. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. We've explored how this ancient wiring in our brains, how it still shapes our lives today.
Yeah, and I think the biggest takeaway for me is that we can't escape the scarcity loop entirely, right?
No, we can't.
It's part of us. It's part of our evolutionary heritage.
Yeah.
But by understanding how it works, we can become more aware of its influence.
Aware.
And make more intentional choices.
Intentional choices, yeah.
We can choose quality over quantity. We can seek meaning and purpose beyond material possessions. And we can find contentment, in the simple things.
In the simple things.
We can choose to create our own abundance. And that's a wrap on today's deep dive. We hope you found it thought-provoking and maybe even a little bit life-changing. As always, we encourage you to continue exploring these ideas on your own. Ask yourself what aspect of your life might benefit from shifting from a scarcity loop to an abundance loop.
That's a great question.
Until next time, keep diving deep.